Okay, let's keep reading the 13th reality, Journal of Curious Letters. We are up to the chapter called... Oh, you boys moved my bookmark. No, that's not what it's called. The chapter is called An Odd Christmas Present. Tick had felt so relieved that his dad believed his story and wanted to help. The whole Alaska expedition didn't really hit him until the next day when his dad told him he'd bought airline tickets. His dad seemed to think they could find out who mailed the original letter and get more information from him or her. Tick thought a trip to Alaska seemed plenty exciting all by itself, and he could barely stand having to wait 10 more days. Every day of the Christmas holiday, Tick and Sophia exchanged emails, finally getting into a consistent groove of answering questions and learning more about each other. Tick could tell Sophia was feisty and confident, not someone to mess with unless you wanted a nice kick to the shin or worse. She was also very smart, and Tick rarely noticed a language barrier. He felt like they were similar in many ways, and he found himself liking her very much. They even played chess online, though it took almost a week to finish one game because of the time difference. Sophia was the first to figure out the last piece of the fourth clue, the first letter of the special place. At first, Tick worried they were violating some rule by helping each other with the clues, but Sophia pointed out that none of the letters said they couldn't. In her opinion, the guy in charge should be impressed they'd had the initiative to seek out others and collaborate. Tick felt dumb when Sophia told him the answer. I only ask that the name of the place begin with a letter coming after A and before Z, but nowhere in between. Tick had already suspected the clue pointed them to a cemetery, but it was Sophia who explained that cemetery began with a C, a letter that was certainly after A and before Z in the alphabet. Also, the letter was nowhere to be found in the word between. That's what the sentence had meant, which now seemed painfully obvious to Tick. They wondered about which cemetery to go to, since any decent-sized town had more than one, but the wording of the clue made it clear that the particular place they went to didn't matter as long as it was a cemetery. Sophia would choose one in her hometown at the appointed time, and Tick would do likewise. Of course, both of them recognised how strange it was that they had to go to a graveyard, but that it didn't matter which one. But everything about the whole mess was odd, so they were getting used to it. Tick was really happy to have found Sophia. For the first time in a long while, he felt like he had a friend. Yeah, she lived in Italy and liked to beat up boys, but beggars couldn't be choosers. He couldn't wait to get the next clue and talk to her about it. On Christmas Day, he got his wish. It had been a perfect couple of days. Snow fell in billions of soft, fluffy flakes, blanketing the yard and the house in pure white, covering up the dirt and grime that had begun to show up after a couple of weeks without a fresh snowstorm. The classic songs of Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra floated through the house like warm air from the fire. Tick's mum went all out in the kitchen, cooking up everything from honey-baked ham to stuffed bell peppers, cheesy potatoes to fruit salad, chocolate-covered peanut butter balls to her famous Christmas cookies, which were full of coconut, butterscotch, pecans, walnuts, several other yummy surprises. Tick was stuffed and happy, remembering once again why the holiday season had always been his favourite time of year. And it only helped matters that he'd be heading to Alaska in a couple of days. Life was sweet. After the hustle and buzz and Christmas and laughter of Christmas morning, tattered wrapping paper lying about in big colourful piles, Tick sat back on the couch, staring at the new goodies he'd received. 3 video games, some new books, a couple of gift certificates, lots of sweets. He usually felt a twinge of sadness once all the presents had been opened, knowing it would be 365 long days until the next Christmas. But today he felt none of that. He felt content and warm, excited and happy. The mystery of MG and his 12 clues had brought a new light to Tick's life, and, despite the dangers that had come with the letters, he'd never felt more alive. He looked up at the decorated tree, its dozens of white lights sparkling their reflection in the red metallic balls and silver tinsel. Something square and bulky tucked behind a large nutcracker ornament caught his attention. He'd looked at his 7-foot tree 1,000 times in the last month, and he knew the thing buried in the branches hadn't been there the morning before this morning. Instantly alert, he looked around to see what his family was doing. His mum had her nose in a book, his dad was in the kitchen, Lisa had headphones on listening to her new CDs, and Kayla played with her kitchen set, making pretend pancakes and eggs. Trying to look nonchalant, Tick got up from the couch and walked over to the tree, staring at the spot that had caught his eyes. A box, wrapped in odd paper with pictures of fairies and dwarves and dragons, was snuggled between two branches, held up by a string of lights. The words, "From MG," were clearly scrawled across the box in blue ink. Tick looked around one more time before he snatched the unopened present and stealthily placed it with his other things. Then, grabbing a big armful of stuff, including the mystery box, he headed upstairs to his room. He sat on his bed and stared at the strange wrapping paper. The present itself was very light, and he felt certain the next clue must lie inside. But who had put it there, and when? He ripped the paper off a plain white cardboard box. After flipping open the lid, Tick saw exactly what he'd expected. The fifth clue. He pulled out the cardstock paper and read the message. "Everything will fail unless you say the magic words exactly correctly. It behooves me to remind you that I cannot tell you the words, nor will I in the face of any amount of undue pressure you may apply towards me, which, of course, would be quite difficult for you to do since you don't know who I am and since I live in a place you cannot go. Best of luck, old chap." Tick read the clue a couple more times, then glued the cardstock into his journal. He thought about the trick used in the fourth clue, but with the word between. Something similar could be happening here. "Everything will fail unless you say the magic words exactly correct." Say the magic words exactly correct. Could exactly correct be the magic words? Tick thought it would be really dumb if that were the answer. Plus, he'd been told the first letter from MG would reveal the special words, not one of the later clues. Tick closed the book, frustrated. This new message told him nothing he didn't already know, only that he had to say something specific when the day came, something magic. Other than that, MG just seemed to be rubbing it in that he wouldn't tell Tick the words what the words were. Na 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 na. Disappointed, wondering if he was missing something obvious, and still baffled at how the present had got into his family's Christmas tree, Tick went downstairs and emailed Sophia about the fifth clue. Knowing she probably wouldn't respond for a while, he joined his dad in the kitchen, sharing the news as he started snacking on everything in sight. Sophia wrote back to him night, which would have been early the next morning her time. His heart lifted when he saw her name in the inbox, and he quickly clicked on the message. "Dear Tick, I got the fifth clue too. Doesn't say much, does it? I think your idea that the magic words are exactly correct is just what you say. Stupid. No way. Too easy. I'm sure you're excited for the big trip to Alaska with your dad. You'll probably get lost and eaten by a polar bear. Your funeral will have the coffin closed because all that will be left is your right pinky finger. Just kidding. I hope you escape alive. I thought I saw a man spying on me yesterday. He looked mean, but disappeared before I got a look. Not good. Have fun in Iceland. Write to me as soon as you return. Ciao, Sophia." Tick reread the sentences about the man spying on her. Sophia threw that in like she was telling him she'd bought a new pair of socks. If some creepy looking dude was watching her, chances were he'd be coming after Tick next, unless someone was already spying on Tick and he hadn't noticed. He felt the familiar shiver of fear run up and down his spine, once again reminded that this MG mystery business wasn't all fun and games. He wrote a quick note back to Sophia telling her to be careful and that he'd write to her again the second he got back from Alaska. He was just about to log off when he heard the chime of his email program. When the new email message popped up, Tick felt like an icy fist had smashed his heart into pulp. From Death. Subject, no subject. His stomach turning sour, Tick clicked on the email. It only had one line of text. See you in Alaska. Chapter 20, The Land of Ice and Snow. 2 days later, Tick and Edgar sat in their seats on the aeroplane, 30,000 feet in the air, soft drinks and stale pretzels making them look forward to a much better meal once they landed in Anchorage. Tick sat by the window, his dad's oversized body wedged into the aisle seat like a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade balloon stuffed into the back of a pickup truck. The steady roar of the plane's engines made Tick feel like his ears were stuffed with cotton wool. The two of them had discussed the fifth clue and the strange email from Death many times over, with no progress. Tick didn't know who was more determined to figure everything out, him or his dad. They'd got much braver or dumber with every passing day, to the point they were willing to ignore an obvious and outright warning like the one received in the email. They were going, and that was final. We need to keep a sharp lookout, his dad said, through a mouthful of pretzels. If either one of us sees something suspicious, yell it out quickly. When in doubt, run. And we need to stay in public as much as possible. Dad, I'd say you sound like a paranoid freak, but I agree 100%. Tick took a sip of his drink. I think I'm half excited and half scared to death. Hey, we're committed, right? There's no turning back now. Cheers. They clicked their plastic cups together. In 2 hours, they'd be in Alaska. 7 rows back, a tall man with black hair and razor-thin eyebrows crouched in his tiny seat as best he could, reading the ridiculous in-flight magazine, which was full of nothing but advertisements and stupid articles about places he'd never care to visit. This spying business was deathly boring, and he hated it. No action, no results, boring, boring, boring. But all of that would change very soon. The spy would become the hunter. His name was Frazier Gunn, and he'd worked more than 20 years for Mistress Jane. He despised the woman, loathed her in fact. She was the cruelest, most selfish, despicable, horrifying creature he'd ever met, and yet his devotion to her was absolute. An odd mixture of feelings, but that's how it had to be when you served someone who planned to take over the realities. They needed a leader like her, ruthless and without conscience. He didn't have to like her, he only needed to pretend to like her, because someday he planned to replace her. Of course, if he ever failed even one of his assigned missions, she fed him to the croc lock near the Lemon Fortress with no remorse. But he was safe for now, and had been promised a great reward if he could unlock the secret barrier, or the secret behind the bizarre series of letters Master George had sent out to kids all over the world. He had only recently discovered the identities of several recipients, enabling him to further his investigation with stealth and caution. But finally, the time for intimidation and action was at hand. It had been a fun trick sending the death email to the boy named Atticus. Quite clever, in fact. It was the dumb kid's own fault for putting his information about the letters on the internet for anyone to find. There'd been a slight risk that Atticus might have chickened out and not gone to Alaska, thereby ruining a chance to learn more for Mistress Jane. But Frazier couldn't resist the calculated threat. He reached into his pocket to feel the reassuring lump of the special thing he'd brought along to perform the important task he planned. He couldn't wait to activate it. The devices they'd retrieved from the fourth reality were so much fun, futuristic and deadly. The spectacle would make all the hours of spying on the brats around the world worth every minute. And if it didn't work, there was always Plan B, or C or D. Giving up on the magazine, Frazier Gunn leaned back and closed his eyes. The boy and his father couldn't very well disappear on an aeroplane now, could they? Tick felt so relieved when he and his dad were finally in the rental car, bags safely stowed away in the trunk, heading down the frozen freeway to Aunt Mabel's house. Even though it was still mid-afternoon, the land around them had grown dark, the sun's brief journey above the horizon having ended an hour ago. Tick held a map in his lap, navigating for his dad. Mabel lived on the outskirts of Anchorage in a small suburb that seemed pretty easy to find. Most of the way followed one main road that stretched endlessly before them, the faded yellow lines of the lane markers seeming to flash then disappear beneath the car. "Well, Professor," Dad said, "prepare yourself for Aunt Mabel. She's quite the character and full of more ideas on how to save your life than you'll probably care to hear. Just know that she means well and do a lot of nodding." "I'm excited to meet her." His dad laughed. You should be. Trust me, if you want entertainment, we're going to the right place." They'd eaten at a fast food restaurant before heading out from the airport, and Tick still had his soft drink, from which he took another big, long swallow. "You think she'll mind when we go exploring out to Macadamia?" "You can bet your life savings she'll mind all right. But, oh well, we'll tell her we didn't want to waste such a good opportunity to see the sights of this beautiful land she calls home. That'll get her, I hope." "When do you think we'll drive out there? Tomorrow morning?" "Sounds good to me. That'll give us the whole evening with Mabel tonight and breakfast tomorrow. She makes a mean plate of eggs, bacon, the works. Hopefully we can figure some things out and return to her place tomorrow night. I just hope Macadamia isn't a dead end." His dad reached over and patted Tick on the leg. "Nah, we'll find something. It couldn't have been a ghost that sent that letter now, could it? Judging by what I've seen lately, maybe." "Good point." Tick studied the map. "Looks like you turn into her neighbourhood up here on the right." Edgar flipped on the indicator as he slowed the car. A mile or so behind, Fraser Gunn pulled off the road and stopped, not wanting to take any chances of being spotted. He'd wait an hour or so, then find himself a discreet parking space where he could watch the house. The boy and his father would probably spend the night, saving their planned expedition to Macadamia for tomorrow. Fraser wanted to see what they discovered there before he put his plan into action. Every little bit of information on what Master George was up to might help Mistress Jane's cause, and Fraser meant to find out everything he could. When the two adventurers drove back to Anchorage after their investigation, he'd implement the device that sat in his pocket. Ready and hungry to get to work, he grinned at the thought. Tick and his dad stood in front of the door to Aunt Mabel's home, staring at the plastic flowered wreath that must have hung there for 2 or 3 decades, its every surface covered in dust. The house itself was a cold and weary pile of white bricks, but the warm light shining through the colourful curtains in the windows made it seem like the cosiest place on earth. However, neither of the Higginsbottoms moved to push the doorbell just yet. "Well, here we are," Dad said. A thick layer of snow and ice covered the yard around them. It looked like a miserably frigid wasteland that hadn't seen the full sun in years. "Here we are," Tick repeated, gripping his suitcase. "Now, one last warning." Dad looked at his son. "Aunt Mabel is at least 150 years old. She laughs like a hyena, and she smells like 3 tubes of freshly squeezed muscle ointment." Tick grinned. "Good enough for me. I love ancient history and watching nature shows, and I don't mind the smell of peppermint." His dad nodded. "That's the spirit. Let's do this thing." He reached out and pushed the doorbell button. 3 seconds later, Aunt Mabel pulled the door open.